Offline by Kieran Marsden. That room, I hated it. It was cold in the winter, sleeping by that window, every day under a thin blanket in bed, drinking lager till I was numb. I felt little, and still, I wanted less. Listening to music, watching the glossy video from a computer glowing artificial light into the real darkness, drowning out the sound of the traffic and police sirens from the city outside, fading my consciousness. I worked every day, nights to be more specific, from 8 p.m. till 6 in the morning, cleaning the city streets under the stars. The hangovers, they became comforting when you don't care about anything. I liked the quiet, just me and my broom under the moonlight, the shimmer of red car brake lights on a path I had just washed. Something was soothing about it. And in flickers, I saw the city's sin. I worked the same street every night for 8 years, employed by the great Bennington's Hotel. Wealthy businessmen, stockbrokers and celebrities stayed there. On them nights, I would take out a cigarette, lean on my broom and watch the wealthy elite come to gratify their primal pleasures. It was always the same car that pulled up, blacked out windows, 4x4. The door would open and some angel-like figure would dismount. They were so bloody beautiful. Drunk clients, usually wealthy businessmen, would catch my eye after he'd paid the driver. The response was a lottery. Often they wouldn't even see me, but sometimes it was a, "What the fuck are you looking at?" I would silently take another drag of my cigarette and watch with indifference. They would walk inside to see to their sin. I was hit once. What I remember most was not the blood dripping from my nose, but the laughter spilling from that pretty prostitute's mouth. They were long times to live through, but looking back, it happened in a blink of an eye, and it ended quicker. One day I woke up in the early afternoon, hungover, obviously, and I remembered the surprising brightness of my room that afternoon. The sky must have been blue. The one moment of the day the sun lines up perfectly with my tiny window. I walked in my underwear to my laptop, and it wouldn't connect to the internet. In short, it had been turned off. At that moment, I noticed the eerie silence of the room. No traffic, no beeping horns, no sirens. Something had happened, because I could hear birds outside. Without any artificial stimulation, the stillness at first felt terrifying. I remember sitting on my bed, in my underwear, biting my nails. But soon my jeans were on, and with little purpose I left my room and entered the apartment block's corridor. Something was wrong, because there were children and women in the corridor. Faces I barely recognised, but had been sleeping meters away from for 9 years. How did I know something was wrong? Because people were looking at each other. I took the stairs to the ground floor. It was then the panic set in. The glass doors at the front of the building revealed a wall of blackness, black bodies with guns and visors forming a wall. Riot police. In reception, there were many others. They didn't talk to one another, though. They spoke to themselves. "What's happening? What am I going to do?" uttered people restlessly. Barely capable of thought, I walked back into the shadows, towards the stairwell, and standing there was a girl. Her hair was greasy, just a little. She wore denim shorts and nothing on her feet. She looked up at me with big eyes that stopped me in every way. "We're not allowed out," she said. I stood and stared at her for 8, maybe 9 seconds before I could move my lips. Nobody who lived in the building had said a word to me since the day I took the keys from the landlady. I was not used to talking to real people about real things. "Sorry, who are you?" I said. "I live on the same floor as you," she said with a slight smile. I apologised. It was then I noticed how dead I was. She was gorgeous. How had I never noticed her before? "What are we going to do with no internet? Is this the end?" she said. I took the stairs, and she followed me. "Do you live alone?" I looked back over my shoulder. She looked up, and her eyes seemed to grow bigger. "I don't want to be alone," she said. In her room, I sat on her chair, and she sat on a single bed. There was nothing to say. I felt nervous, like I was supposed to do something, but I had no idea what. We stared, then smiled, and then, because I didn't know what to do, I said, "I best be going." When I stood and placed my hand on the cold door handle, it came, her warm hand on the back of my neck. When I turned, her eyes revealed answers I didn't know existed. My hands moved without direction, like a dancer. They just knew what to do. When our lips came together, something was ignited. I remember being naked on her bed, feeling reborn, her fingers intertwined with mine, and the smell of her hair as she rested her head on my chest. Yesterday, the silence was suffocating. Now it was music. This nothingness was meaningful, marinated in bliss. Before, it hurt. Then came words. Like a river leading to the most beautiful scene, we rode it until the stars came out, then made love again, and fell asleep holding each other closely. When I woke, she was on her phone. The internet was back on. I tried to speak, but her eyes were glued to that artificial light, fixated on false divinity. When I touched her leg, she moved away. "When are you going?" was the only words that came from her mouth. As I put on my jeans, I smiled. What a fool I was. I left the room, and we never spoke again. I have passed her a few times in the corridor, but her face, those eyes, they're always down, watching her life on her phone. When I smoke at night, leaning upon my broomstick, under the moonlight, I think about that night, the only night I was ever alive.